I would like to first thank Bhargavi for creating a space for aesthetics in our city. Even though currently it's virtual, eventually I'm sure it will be a huge advantage for all our youngsters to associate with a space which creates a connect with art and culture. Uh, I've been associated with the Crafts Council of Andhra Pradesh and then now Telangana, for the past 17 years. My journey with the Crafts Council was quite chaotic because I basically uh, I started my journey basically to help write reports and create documents for for my aunt. I have been associated with the Crafts Council of Andhra Pradesh, which is now the Crafts Council of Telangana, for the past 17 years. I have served various posts in it. I've helped with the organizing of data, with creating systems, and also I have worked on various workshops and various initiatives with the craftsmen. Earlier, we worked with craftsmen from the whole composite state of Andhra Pradesh. So we have been associated with various crafts and weaver communities right across the state. And because of the various needs at that time, we had we have developed a very good relationship with most of these craftsmen. We have, as far as possible, tried to revive traditional uh, crafts and retain their aesthetics while also making these craftsmen relevant to the current market. This we found was most important because there was no point uh, in the museumification of a craft. Our focus was to retain traditional craft skills and also make them suitable for the current market. So most of our workshops and design interventions have focused on bringing or retaining our traditional craft skills and making them relevant to the current market. Uh, and I think in India we are very fortunate that we still have this living tradition. Our crafts are living tradition. The skills still exist. Our craftsmen are still there who can make uh, things which were made many hundreds of years back, and these things are still being used. So we're very fortunate that we live in a city like Hyderabad, which has had so much culture and craft in it. And I think culture and craft go hand in hand. And the craft of Hyderabad reflect the culture of that period of century back, where Hyderabad was a very prosperous city and a lot of craft was encouraged. Some of the crafts of those times, which all of us know about, are Zardosi, silver filigree from Karimnagar, and then we also have the amazing the Puttapaka, the Telia Roma, the tile like double ikat of Telangana. Then we also have things like pearls and jewelry, which was so incredible and not found anywhere else. Hyderabad was famous for these, but that was a result of the prosperity of the city, I think. Uh, but we in Crafts Council haven't really dealt with these aspects of our craft. So apart from the well-known Hyderabadi crafts, like you have the embroidery, the zardosi, you have the silver filigree, you have the bidri. So apart from that, there are local folk art traditions which were also practiced and which we are encouraging now, because these things still strike a chord amongst the people, and we realize now that the youngsters, along with this this education and their financial empowerment, have this intense desire to connect back to their cultural roots. So while on one hand we have the silver filigree and the bidri, there are also other earlier less well-known crafts of this area, Hyderabad. like the Cherial folk art painting, then you have the Tedia Rumal, then you have the Nirmal painting. Strangely, Nirmal was a craft practiced in Adilabad. There they paint the most exquisite birds and animals on wood. These shapes are created with the help of wood and a little sawdust and tamarind gum. And their painting is so fine that it's amazing and it's very realistic. Uh, some of them were brought to Hyderabad sometime in the 1950s apparently, and they were a small sort of a work shed was set up here, and they were introduced to painting on furniture. So now largely people think of Nirmal painting as painting on furniture and on, like small miniature portraits kind of thing, which as far as I know was not part of the earlier Nirmal tradition. Silver filigree, I think, has traveled from, it's very well known and has been documented in many ancient civilizations and in different parts of the world. But I think it came to Hyderabad from the traders from the Middle East, from Persia. And I think because the Nizams patronized this, it seems to exist only here and in Cuttack in Orissa. I haven't heard of any silver filigree artisans in any other part of our country. And these silver filigree items were ordered by the nobility, were used by the nobility for, they used to order large trays, pandans, and then exquisitely shaped containers. They were shaped like birds and animals. And sometime in the 1970s or the 80s, these people fell on hard times because their patrons were no longer ordering the same products and they couldn't afford such huge things. So these people were, the artisans were dwindling and they were in a very bad shape. At that time, I think one of Crafts Council's initial initiatives was to get them to make smaller items, contemporary items like tissue holders, but bookmarks, and little spoons. They were all like very relevant and little salvers which could be gifted. With that, they became very popular again, and the artisans are so enterprising that they could adapt very quickly. They quickly changed to this mode of making things, and now not only in Hyderabad, not only in Karimnagar, where they have a very well organized cluster, in Hyderabad also there are many artisans and they are doing very well. One of our proud stories, we can't claim success for it, but one of our proud stories, and he's a member of the Crafts Council also, is Krishnachari, who went to South America to train silver filigree artisans there. Right? So this craft is obviously quite prevalent across the world, and they felt that he could make a difference, so they invited him for a couple of months to South America, and he taught various clusters there. And these artisans are all so enterprising that they're all very active on social media and they're selling online also with the help of the youngsters in the family. So, uh, this is the reason I feel that in India we are very, very fortunate that we have a living tradition of craft. This is what I feel makes a difference, and my basic interest in craft is because of the livelihoods it can create. With the right kind of inputs from people like us, from the patrons, from the youngsters, from social enterprises, we can make a difference to the livelihoods of a number of people. Another story I'd heard of about Zardozi, this was many, many years back, when Chow Mahalla was being restored, was that the textile experts who were restoring the garments of the Nizam and his children, and there were various garments which were apparently put away and were in very bad repair. So they were wondering, the textile experts were wondering how to restore these garments. And then they found that the karigars in Charminar, the Baidians of Charminar, could do the same job in the same manner very well. They were all so excited about it, and that was one thing that struck me about craft at that point, craft as it exists. Because when you see craft in other countries, they always talk about something that used to be done, that it can't be done anymore. So they preserve them in museums under glass cases, and they sort of it's like it's deified. It's like put behind a glass case and said, you can only look, you can't recreate these things. In India, I think we are very fortunate. We can recreate, and where we have to put in our effort now is to make these artisans retain their livelihoods. Another group that we have worked with extensively are the Cherial folk painters. Actually, they are scroll painters who come from a village called Cherial. So now they are eponymously called Cherial folk painting. Actually, it's a very interesting story when you hear about them. They paint these long scrolls, which the narrator of these stories would take from village to village, telling them uh, episodes from the epics. A community would order it from the narrator, and the community elders, the narrator, and the painter would sit together and discuss which episode they wanted and how it should be depicted. So it was like these people, this family of painters, would paint to order depending on which episode from the epic was needed and which community had ordered. Well, I keep mentioning the word community because these episodes were very varied in the emphasis on the episode was varied depending on which community it was. So the Gauds of Telangana uh, had gave a lot of importance to a certain part of the Mahabharata or the Ramayana. So those were painted in a specific way or in a specific narrative. The focus was on the narrative. The perspective of the narrative varied depending on which community had ordered the scroll paintings. Of course, and apparently the old one, they would copy from the old scroll and they would make small changes depending on what the narrator wanted or the community wanted. And the old scrolls were left behind with these painters who would then just put them in a river so that they wouldn't be trampled or spoiled by anybody. Now, of course, the narrator's role has been overtaken by movies and television, but these painters have still found something to do. They have adapted very well to the current circumstances. They're painting on different surfaces. They're painting with different styles, and but they have retained their basic uh, iconography and sometime back, we worked intensively with the Cherial painters, and rather than having them paint in the usual boxes, the narrative boxes, like a comic book which the Cherial painters used to use on their scrolls, we got them to paint on plates. And the designer we worked with got them to break up their figures so that they looked relevant, but still they looked different. So they have really adapted to that, and actually we created a few pieces which were really iconic, where they painted the churning of the ocean on the cow Kamadhenu. So this we used two or three different craftsmen to bring this together. So we got the Kamadhenu made by some craftsmen who make vahanas, and then the Cherial artists painted on this. So these are the kind of collaborations that we like to uh, do and like to uh, encourage. Till the early 2000s, people of a certain generation who had grown up in smaller towns and villages took craft and handlooms for granted because all their life they had seen it and they assumed that it would always exist forever and ever. And actually, I think there was a whole generation which didn't value craft or handlooms much because they wanted to move on to more progressive things. I mean, that was a culture at a certain time in our country. But now I find that uh, when we conduct exhibitions in Crafts Council, I find that there's a whole generation of youngsters who have just moved into the city, who've been empowered with these new jobs and their salaries, which help them to aspire to a better life, who are very, very curious about our craft and our culture. So even though they don't buy much, they come and they spend a lot of time trying to understand the crafts of our country. And that is what is so heartening, because we realize that there is an inner need in every human being to connect with the past. And the craftsmen also are very, very encouraged when these youngsters come, because uh, that's the incredible part of our country and our craftsmen. Though they travel so far and they come and stay in these strange, huge cities just to sell their wares, they can understand when a youngster wants to connect with them, wants to understand the craft. So then you can see the bond between these youngsters who want to learn more and these craftsmen who've created something. And then when that bond develops, the craftsman also can understand the next time a designer works with them, or somebody wants to help them with their design, is with their products, in designing better products or more relevant products. I wouldn't say better products, I would say relevant products. Then they understand the kind of lifestyles that we have now in our city and what we need these craft products for. So, uh, otherwise, when the craftsman doesn't travel and the youngster doesn't meet the craftsman, both don't understand the other's need. Sometimes you see some people bargaining with a craftsman because it's uh, it's possible to bargain. It's a habit which I mean, a lively interaction between the craftsman and the customer is to be encouraged. I mean, you have to question them. But to bargain just because you have the power to bargain is not something that I appreciate personally. And I find that a lot of youngsters don't do it anymore. I mean, I think that again was the culture of a previous generation. Now, the youngsters respect the the craftsman's effort, and they're very profuse in their admiration. All this encourages the craftsman, and I think that is essential. It's not just the money; it's the encouragement and the hope that they have. All of us Indians are very aspirational. So just like a lot of us have moved from our agrarian lands, from our agricultural lands, and we've come into the urban areas because we felt the jobs were better here, the schools were better here, we thought that our children had better opportunities in cities. Similarly, the artisans have also, some of them have made that shift. And there was always this feeling that the life in the city was better, and to a certain extent, maybe it was. But their livelihoods and the way they earned their money had to change drastically, because most of our crafts were community based, and they depended on the whole community to make their living. Like a potter depended on the whole village for his work, to sell his work, and also he didn't make pottery throughout the year. That was a seasonal thing. The rest of the time, that was a seasonal occupation. The rest of the time, he was probably had a bit of land, or he was working as an agricultural laborer with somebody. And similarly, the basket weaver, he would make baskets for some of the time. He would make very intricate and very complex reeds for the weaver. So it was a life where everybody depended on one another. But once this urban migration sort of caught on and people started moving to the cities, these craftsmen also moved because they wanted better things for their children. And especially in the early 2000s, when Hyderabad became this booming Cyberabad, there were so many people leaving the neighboring villages and coming into Hyderabad. Some of the weavers that we know who were slightly better off than the rest educated their children, and we know that most of them have white collar jobs in software companies. And the weavers felt that that was a better option. And some of the weavers were not so well off. They also moved to the city and they became security guards and watchmen and that kind of thing because it just that idea of getting that 10 to 15,000 every month was so appealing to them, and they thought that it also came with this added bonus of their children having a good school to study. But in a few years, we found that there was the reverse migration, where some of them went back to their villages, where some of them realized that living in the city, working in these menial jobs was not as satisfying as living in your own community, in your own village, and creating something. And some of these viewers have these, especially the doubly cut weavers, they have this amazing skill in their brain where they have this whole calculation of how to tie and dye the warp and weft in intricate and amazing designs. And once, see, this is where I feel it's a two-way process. There's no point just talking about they shouldn't migrate or that it's wrong for them to migrate. I think those of us who have the power, like the NGOs and the social enterprises, we should create a better life and better opportunities for them in their craft. And then they should have the ability to choose. It's not our decision where they should stay or what they should do. The point is, the only thing that we can do is give them better opportunities. So now, all over the world, there's been this huge resurgence in handlooms, especially ikat is being recognized. So some of these ikat weavers have gone back to their villages and they are doing well. And some of their children, this is another success story of ours, where, uh, I mean, it's not a success story of ours, sorry, please repeat that. Some of the success stories of these weavers is when they come and experience the city and their children, most of the children are taught these skills right from the beginning. This Western concept of child labor is maybe like child labor is bad in a coal mine or in uh, in a factory condition, but in these skills, where these skills hereditary skills are passed down from father to child or mother to child, it's very important that see they absorb this knowledge right from the beginning. And most of these weavers, they teach their children basic simple tasks from a very young age. So we've encouraged that throughout because we realize that these skills cannot be learned after a certain age. So these children learn these skills, and then some of them who've gone to school have opted for design courses in college. Now they're going to design schools and they're helping their parents in creating new designs, in how to in communicating with people, online platforms of buyers from distant places. So they know how to use the computer, they send emails, they create Excel sheets, they create drawings on the computer. So this is where I feel like we can empower these craftsmen. Their children should be educated. I would be the last one to say that craftsmen's children don't need to be educated. But what kind of education? That's what we should ask ourselves. And I would actively encourage these children to be educated in their own skills as well as in modern digital skills so that they find the perfect blend between the old and the new.